Dragons can be some of the coolest entities in fiction, ranging from noble and righteous to evil and scheming, while also just looking awesome. A wide range of dragons can be found in video games, and regardless of their motivations, pretty much all of them are fearsome enemies. Let's take a look at 10 of the more ferocious dragon bosses and what they bring to the table. Crimson Glow Valstrax, Monster Hunter Rise. Valstrax debuted in Monster Hunter Generations Ultimate, and even for Elder Dragons it was quite unorthodox. Its wings are the main feature when it's not spewing dragon energy or unleashing it in homing projectile attacks. They're used to stab the player in various ways, but perhaps the most dangerous aspect of Valstrax is when it takes flight, shooting off into the sky like a jet and crashing down for massive damage. So what makes Crimson Glow Valstrax, introduced in Monster Hunter Rise, so much more dangerous? For one, its dragon energy is now completely out of control, making it much more aggressive to the extent that it will ambush players on hunts. Its round-the-world attack remains, but now you'll have to deal with exploding patches of dragon energy, which can cause dragon light when it slams its wings down and energy beams. Long story short, this is one fight you'll need to bring your best gear to, and always remember to look up. Fatalis, Monster Hunter World Iceborne. Speaking of overpowered dragons in Monster Hunter, very few can match up to the fabled black dragon Fatalis. As the final monster released for Monster Hunter World Iceborne, it boasts over 66,000 HP when solo, with a hunt timer of only 30 minutes. Along with dealing tons of damage with its flames, it can outright one-shot players, depending on the build. It also unleashes not one or two, but up to 5 novas. The first 2 require retreating to certain parts of Castle Schrade to avoid them. As for the other 3, just run at Fatalis and hope that you're positioned well enough to not die. But wait, there's more. Fatalis gains new attacks and deals even more damage. You'll need to break its head to reduce the danger of its new state, which essentially means it goes back to dealing the same damage prior to the second nova. Using siege weapons and the Dragonator, having a weapon augmented with health regen and skills like Part Breaker along with fire resistance is pretty much necessary to win, and even then it'll be extremely tough. Lich Dragon Fortisax, Elden Ring. Anyone who remembers Dark Eater Midir will know that From Software's dragons are nothing to be trifled with, but Lich Dragon Fortisax is something else altogether. Found in the Deeproot Depths, you're immediately beset with lightning everywhere, which leaves behind Deathblight clouds, which cause, you guessed it, death after buildup. Fortisax will not only breathe fire from a distance, but also slam the ground with lightning, which emanates in waves from the point of impact. Even more hilarious is that when striking it from up close, you'll be covered in red lightning, which does nothing on its own but calls down a bolt at your position after a delay. This is in addition to it clawing and biting at the player. Once it's down to 50% health, Fortisax will hold 2 lightning bolts in its hands and slam them down, one after the other, with waves of lightning emanating forth. The usual death-inducing bolts then resume just because. Alatreon, Monster Hunter World Iceborne. While not as difficult as Fatalis, Alatreon still easily ranks as the second most difficult and perhaps most annoying fight in Monster Hunter World Iceborne. As the embodiment of Calamity, Alatreon is capable of using all of the elements: fire, ice, thunder, water, and dragon, which means it can also inflict their respective blights. So whether you're burning, freezing, electrocuted, or getting knocked down, the suffering is real. Alatreon is also capable of shifting between 3 modes: fire, dragon, and ice, and can start in either fire or ice form depending on the quest. So depending on its weakness, you need to bring specific elemental weapons, deal enough elemental damage to suppress it, and then break its horns as it shifts to dragon mode. Failure to break its horns results in Eschaton Judgment, an AoE attack that quickly kills you, no questions asked. Failure to suppress its elemental damage results in it shifting from dragon to the other elemental mode after Eschaton Judgment, thus matching your weapon's element and taking reduced damage. So focus on elemental damage, break its horns while using Clutch Claw to send it into 3 specific walls, no exception. Somehow dodge all of its attacks and don't die to Eschaton Judgment. It's just that easy. The kicker? Alatreon's armor isn't even all that great. The only real reward is that you can then challenge Fatalis, an even bigger headache, but one that at least provides the best armor in the game. Adelon, Baldur's Gate 2. While many of the dragons on this list are fairly hostile, Adelon is different, a lawfully good silver dragon. She guards the passage between the surface and the Underdark, while trying to ensure that the drow and elves on the surface are relatively at peace. However, once her eggs are stolen by the main antagonist, all bets are off. This had been fertilized with the spirit of her dead husband, who died fighting a great evil alongside her, so it makes sense that she'd want them back. Retrieving the eggs will complete the quest in relatively normal fashion. If they're destroyed though, then a fight with Adelon ensues. At level 23 with 254 HP, she's relatively difficult to take down, unless you straight up cheese the fight. However, there is another method. When not hostile and upon teleporting the player to the Underdark's entrance, you can use Finger of Death to potentially one-shot her. This will kill her quickly and garner full XP while also avoiding the whole sordid ordeal. Unfortunately, on top of committing an evil deed, you don't get any silver scales from slaying her. Levanthin, Odinsphere Lathrifsur. Levanthin is a boss fight that pops up a few times throughout Odinsphere Lathrifsur. Even as a hatchling, he can put up quite a fight. Fighting Levanthin means traversing up the length of his massive back and attacking a specific horn on his head, all while avoiding lightning and homing orbs of energy. Getting hit by either will send you tumbling back down. It will also just stop attacking after losing a certain amount of health, and send you back to the bottom anyway, so climbing the same length again is inevitable. Then there's Levanthin's tendency to wall off the player and attack with its head, either shooting energy or trying to swallow them whole. Grim Matchstick, Cuphead. To say that Cuphead's bosses are difficult would be an understatement. They each have a number of different attacks and patterns, along with multiple phases. Dying once means having to repeat the entire boss fight from scratch, and along with attacking and dodging, you also need to know which attacks to parry, but among the tough bosses, there are those which are simply a pain. The dragon, Grim Matchstick, is one such example. Encountered in Inkwell Isle 2, Grim Matchstick starts off by shooting waves of rings and fireballs while attacking with his tail from below. You have to jump on small clouds from the left of the screen to the right, so on top of keeping track of his attacks, you have to be careful not to fall. Deal enough damage and he'll fly to the other side of the screen and extend his tongue out, causing several fiery projectiles to march out. Along with not being able to land on his tongue, some of them can jump up and damage you. Once enough damage is dealt, you move on to the third phase where Grim grows 2 more heads, spews smaller fireballs at a faster rate, and even unleashes a stream of fire in a straight line. Dealing with all of this is tough enough, but having to jump across cloud platforms as well can turn the entire thing into a maddening affair. Bahamut, Final Fantasy VII Remake. The legendary king of dragons and one of the strongest summons in the entire Final Fantasy series, Bahamut is probably the singular toughest boss in Final Fantasy VII Remake. In order to even fight him, you need to complete all of the battle intel reports, after which he becomes accessible in the Shinra Combat Simulator. With over 66,000 health on normal mode, Bahamut has a wide range of attacks, from swiping at your party to dive bombing, unleashing a flurry of slashes, shooting out homing energy orbs, and binding a single party member for 5 seconds while it breathes fire on them. Then there are attacks like Flare Breath, which silence and slow upon a hit. When using its Umbral Aura, it can unleash moves like Umbral Skies, which fires homing orbs that can't be blocked and always hit for massive damage. Oh, and it's constantly unleashing a field that damages you over time with no way to block it. When Bahamut begins counting down, you need to unleash your most powerful attacks to stop it. Failing to do so sees it casting Mega Flare, which instantly kills your party unless Mana Ward is up, having your selected party at level 50 with 7,000 or more HP, each along with fully upgraded weapons, is only the first step to taking down the king. For even more fun, try fighting Bahamut in Versus Shinra Secrets, which is only available in hard mode. Upon losing half of its health, it summons Ifrit because, of course it does. Alpha Dragon, Ark Survival Evolved. Before Scorched Earth, Aberration, and Genesis Part 1 and 2, one of the fiercest bosses on the island was the dragon. Encountered in volcanic areas, it can breathe fire and take to the skies while summoning other dinosaurs, like Pteranodons and Dimorphodons to aid it. It has 3 variants, Gamma, Beta, and Alpha. Alpha is undoubtedly the toughest, with 972,000 health and 10,000 stamina. The best way to fight it is to bring your own tamed dinosaurs, like T-Rexes and Therizinosaurs, since they can swarm the dragon while also dealing with its minions. Having strong weapons is also a must, especially when having to shoot it in the sky. Divine Dragon, Sekiro: Shadows Die Twice. Even if it's set in feudal Japan, this wouldn't be a From Software game without a dragon. It also happens to be one of the strangest fights overall. You'll start by taking on several smaller dragons, called Old Dragons of the Tree. As they're slain, tree-like structures emerge from the ground. Deplete the health bar fully and the divine dragon awakens in the distance, blowing you back with a massive wind current. The key here is to avoid its giant slashes and wave-like projectiles. Grapple to a tree that's been struck by lightning, harness it, and redirect it at the divine dragon, which is easier said than done when it's constantly attacking you. At some point, the trees will wither, so you'll have to fend off the dragon's attacks until they grow again. From that perspective at least, deflecting its giant sword is pretty darn cool, but it's still a massive departure from everything else until now. That's all for now. If you enjoy what you saw, please hit the like button. And if you're new to the channel, now is a great time to subscribe. We upload brand new videos every single day. After subscribing, don't forget to enable all notifications by clicking the bell icon. Thanks for watching this video, and we'll see you next time, right here on Gaming Bolt.